All right, folks. Hello, hello, hello. I am just so delighted to be here with my friend and brilliant author, Julianna Miner. Hi, how are you?
Hi, I'm good.
You're located in Virginia or DC?
I am actually, I'm actually in Cincinnati, Ohio.
Wait a minute.
For
Wait a
Corona
second.
right now. My husband has, our family has a house here, and the plan had been to spend spring break here, and
Okay.
it's much quieter here than DC. There's less humans around us.
Yes, yes.
And as a matter of fact, today is my husband's 50th birthday, and the plan was to spend the day at opening day for the Cincinnati Reds because he's a fan.
Yeah.
It's pretty much the same to get to hang out with your wife and kids during quarantine.
It's the same thing. Well, the reason I asked about location is just before we were talking about school closures, and this was part of, actually, I reached out to you just a couple of days ago about having this conversation about screen time because, and then just yesterday was announced that Massachusetts will be closed till at least May 6th. I'm sure mentally I was telling you, I feel like we're just not going back this year, but Virginia's done. Yeah.
So Virginia's done for the year. We are online for the duration of the year, and my kids are enrolled in schools in Virginia.
Yes. So yeah. And so the reason I was so wanting to talk to you, and I'm so grateful you were like willing to hop on and just be nimble about this, because I feel like in the face of everything, I just want to try to be useful. And a lot of people are freaking out about screen time and it's a funny juxtaposition because people are both like, what would we do without tech right now? But then also feeling bad about tech or feeling guilty about how much is going on. So that was the context of why I wanted to talk to you today. And I would be remiss. Will this put it backwards? No, it's not.
No, it looks great.
Yeah, this is your book, and I forget what the pub date was, but it's amazing.
Last summer. Yeah.
Last summer. Okay, Raising a Screen Smart Kid. Everybody should get it. I'm going to link it up in the comments after. And I should tell you, there was so much good for people who are joining now or come to this a little later. There's so much good, like nerd stuff in there, like diagrams and stuff, but also just your real wonderful, funny voice.
Thanks.
And I want to tell you, I will also link to this episode 170 of the Edit Your Life show, where I interviewed you, and we dig a lot deeper in this book. So I recommend people listen to that if they want more.
That was one of my favorite interviews, like of all time.
Well, I'm honored, and I want to tell you, it is, our podcast has been running for 4 years now or something. It is the second top track ever listened to, downloaded on I checked the stats right before we came.
Okay, did you see that? That's my groundhog from Caddyshack dance.
I love it. Okay.
It's my like white lady embarrassing celebration dance.
It's all good. So I want to encourage people who, as you're coming to the broadcast, please ask questions. I have 5 questions for you of my own, but if anybody has questions, or if you come to this later and you want to drop a question, please do it in the comments and I'll try to get those answered for you. So let's dive right in. And I want to ask you, specifically with this context of Virginia being done with school for the rest of the year, what are your thoughts on screen time rules right now? I mean, everything is unusual. As I mentioned, we're both needing screen time because for many reasons, educational and otherwise, but it's also a point of stress and worry for a lot of parents. So what would you say to them?
I think I have 3 points, right? The first is model the same kind of tech use and screen use that you are expecting from your kids. And that's hard because many of us are being asked to work from home, and that takes the form of being on our phones and our laptops, right?
Yep.
So the first is like model what you expect to see from them. And the second is narrate what you're doing when you're online. So they might not realize that the conversation that you're having is work related, right? Because ours sounded very conversational the past few minutes. So it might be important for me to clarify for my kids, I'm doing an interview with a friend to talk about XYZ. So from 12:45 to 1:30, this is work. And also to say, like, I'm feeling really stressed out. So I'm going to go read my Kindle and chill. Like, it looks like I'm just scrolling on my phone. I'm reading a book. Or maybe I'm going to look at some dog rates for a while just to
Yep.
bring my blood pressure down. I think it's really okay to use screen time to decompress, but then let them know what you're using. And that also creates the norm where then if you're asking them what they're doing online, if you're sharing that, then you expect them to share with you what they're doing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then the third would be reasonable in your expectations. If the weather is terrible and your kids are stuck inside, they're going to be online a lot.
Yeah.
It is what it is. So I just wouldn't beat yourself up about it. And allow yourself a little space to understand that this is an unprecedented time and that they're going to be having lots of different screen time, especially when the online learning really kicks in for good. For us, that starts Monday morning. And you know, online time with your classes is not the same thing as gaming with your buddies or playing Animal Crossing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true.
And honestly, a couple hours spent playing Animal Crossing with your friends, because I mean, video gaming is very social, right? And they're not able to spend social time. So it's okay to do that, maybe more than normal, provided you're aware of what's going on and who they're playing with and all that good stuff. And obviously it's going to depend on the age of your kid.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I find like, you know, Zoom, which everybody is now using. Zoom is like my 9-year-old's new play date. Like she has a Zoom call scheduled right after this, and with a friend from Texas and a friend, you know, a local friend, and it's just so different now. And I've talked about this quite a bit in different places, but I just wanted to put out again, sort of one of my guiding principles for this whole, I mean, for life, but also especially now, which is that with my kids, I feel like if I just say, we just have the mantra, every day you've got to do one thing for your brain, one thing for your body, and one thing for your house, and for the house. And I feel like actually that last piece, as long as they do something that contributes and like a chore or whatever, I feel like, okay, anything else is fine. Yeah, so, I mean, that's a pretty loose, low standard, but it's really, really helpful.
I think that's awesome. And right now we have pretty decent weather. And we're fortunate that we are someplace where my kids can play outside and run around the block and take dogs for walks and respect other people's social distances and protect their own. And I know we're very fortunate to be in that situation. So yeah, I mean, I think that's totally reasonable.
Yeah,
I'm totally taking that on. I'm going to use that one thing for the house. I mean,
oh yes.
Honestly, I have a teenage boy. He's been taking out the trash and recycling just because he looks bored. I'm like, get up.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Any little thing. So, you know, we talked about Animal Crossing. What are some positive ways that you can engage kids around screens? I mean, we talked about like games and our social time. Zoom is like the new play date, you know, for 9-year-olds, as I mentioned. Yeah, what else would you recommend for parents who are looking for really positive things?
11-year-old is actually upstairs right now taking her 3rd dance class of the week via Zoom.
Oh yeah.
It's awesome.
I love it.
Her studio is really just like a loving kind of family place, and they have worked really hard to keep kids engaged, like with their little dance community. And so that's the 3rd time she's done that this week, and it's keeping her physically active and it's keeping her connected to her buddies. So I think it's a great opportunity. I know a friend of mine who's an elementary school teacher has set up like Zoom like meet and greets with her class before they move to online learning. I am trying to encourage my children to do Duolingo streaks with me.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea.
They're like, that's perilously close to school, and we're gonna, you know, yesterday we had this big conversation about captions on or captions off while watching Netflix, and so we did a poll among our friends to see whether captions are on or captions off. And I feel like that's a little bit of learning, right? There's some math in the poll. There's some sort of sociology, the difference in age groups. Younger people tend to be anti-caption. Older people are pro-caption. You know, my son is making me playlists to listen to. I think there's so many ways that you can. I'm being forced probably to play more video games than I want to. But then my kids are being forced to like go on more dog walks than they want to, and like play more board games than they want to.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's a good opportunity to get really familiar with the stuff that your kids are doing online by doing it with them. So if your kids are into gaming, doing it with them, playing the games, becoming conversant with the different types of platforms. So we have like a Switch and an Xbox, learning about the different games, getting involved in them, seeing which ones are creepy and stressful and which ones are fine. Everybody's playing Animal Crossing this week.
I got to check that out. I have no idea. I'm playing a game. I've started playing a game with my 9-year-old called Hamster Life, where we take care of hamsters, and it's basically like Candy Crush for hamsters. Yesterday I had to take a break, but you know,
Candy Crush is actually a really good example of a game that's designed to be addictive because it's run on a variable reinforcement and predictable reinforcement schedule, just like a slot machine. Because you never know when you're, what you're going to get, and then you get it, and it's a reward, and it's enough to like keep you tapping.
Right.
Not good for my brain.
I know. I took a day off yesterday. I was like, I just can't. The hamsters will be fine without me. Well, you mentioned, being able to check out, and I love the idea. We talked about this on our Edit Your Life interview. This idea of playing, engaging with your kids through games, and sometimes you kind of have to suck it up, and you might not really enjoy the game, and but it also is a good opportunity, as you pointed out, to like see what things are actually fun, what things are a little creepy. So, what are some just, not in a let's freak out parents because we're already freaked out about enough stuff, but what are some things, negative things that we should just watch out and kind of keep a, just keep a like high level eye out for?
My brain is really wrapped around teenagers right now. So that's obviously what I'm thinking of. I think all parents need to be concerned a little bit about just overall complacency and loosening up on the rules and the monitoring, because their kids are going to be on more. And the bottom line is like the more use, the more likely kids are to be exposed to things that maybe they didn't even want to see. They just clicked on something and there it was. The more likely they are to suffer the ill effects in terms of like emotional well-being. While it makes us feel connected, if you imagine it like a seesaw, right? Like it makes us feel more emotionally connected, but it also has the possibility of making us feel disconnected and lonely and having kids experience FOMO. Also, the more you use, while your general rules might be to kind of check in with kids more about what they're doing and look at, I do believe in monitoring kids' online use. I believe in doing it with transparency and also making your own stuff pretty open and available. But if you get loosey-goosey about that, especially if you're loosey-goosey about letting your kids have access to it late at night, I think that could be a problem. And another thing I worry about is something called emotional contagion.
Yes, talk more.
Okay. So emotional contagion, I write a little bit about it in the book, is the potential for online communication and social media use to transfer both positive and negative emotions. And there's actually a ton of really good research on the effectiveness with which negative emotions and positive emotions spread. And they've used like infectious disease models to predict how these things spread. And if you think back to like the 2016 presidential election or to a really pivotal and controversial moment, like a news story, how you would see things come across your feed and it would be filtered through the lens of the people who you follow and who follow you. And basically Facebook itself has done studies that talk about the potential for widespread emotional contagion to happen when something negative or positive happens. And in the context of this sort of unprecedented pandemic, I think it's really easy for panic to spread, for feelings of like anxiety and scarcity and urgency that are both real but inflated, if that makes sense. There's also so much misinformation out there that is really easily spread. And I know I've had to take many steps back from social media because people who I know and respect and who I perceive to be really intelligent are spreading things that are just ridiculously false. And I find myself wanting to like just throw down in a comment thread. That's not a good use of my time. So I need to take a step back from social media, particularly Facebook, because I find that's the most triggering for me. But I know, like, for kids, it can be really difficult to see things maybe on YouTubers that they follow, or in friends, like Snapchat stories or Instagram stories that are kind of showing them what they're doing in real time, that might skew their perception of you know, what's normal for people their own age to be doing right now, or to you know, elevate their feelings of risk or anxiety. And this is particularly true for kids who have anxiety or depression, specifically depression. But the data is really strong about that. If your kid has struggling with mental health at all, you've got to be more engaged with them and the amount of time they're spending online and what they're doing online.
Yeah. Yeah.
And try and gear it towards the positive and the good stuff as much as possible. So if it's like watching movies and binge watching shows and sharing that with friends and it's making them happy, great. But if it's spending too much time watching videos about, like, I don't know, eyeliner or eyebrows, or going out and playing lacrosse when they shouldn't be on the fields or whatever, and it's making them feel bad, then you need to be really checked into that and make sure that you're providing reality checks and context for what they're seeing, and also limits. And the problem is, the older your kids get, the less likely they are to, like, share with you what they're seeing. You know?
Right.
So you just, you have to be really mindful of that. And that's for our own mental health and also really for our kids. So.
Yeah. And, you know, this is, you know, reminding me that it's a very ripe opportunity to have a, you know, quick conversation with your kids about trusted sources, because I feel like, you know, the teenagers right now compared to, like, the kind of teenager I was, like, they're so much more tuned into what is happening. And I think that that's great. And I think it also can lead to, you know, a lot of sort of doom and gloom about the world and where we're headed and that sort of thing. So I think it, you know, I've had a number of conversations with my 15-year-old about, you know, trusted sources, because, you know, there's a lot out there, and the news spreads fast with the kids, as they say. So, you know, even with our, you know, school extended closing, she knew about it before I did. So, because everybody was texting about it. So yeah, I think it's really, I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's a really important part of this story, I think.
I think it's also important to get your head wrapped around who is a trusted source from the perspective of your kid, as opposed to, like, our definition of a trusted source. I have a handful of people online who, if they post something, I'm almost not I'm not gonna double check the source, because I trust them I trust their judgment, right? So actually, you're one of those people. If you were to post something, I probably wouldn't second guess whether or not it was from a reliable source, because I trust your judgment. You are a source of good information for me. Now, for, like, a 14-year-old who follows a couple of YouTubers, it's almost hard for adults to wrap their head around the relationship that kids have with influencers, because especially if they're smaller scale, the kids' investment in the career and the content that these influencers share is meaningful, right? And it is more reciprocal than, you know, obviously the relationship that I had in my head with Duran when I was 14, right? Like, they exchange information. Like, there's an actual, it's not really reciprocal, but it is more than anything we would have experienced at their age.
Right.
And so they are, especially if they are someone who has that blue check next to their name, or someone who is verified or considered kind of a big shot, they don't have any qualifications. They have only their own experience and their ability to broadcast whatever content they're broadcasting, but they are considered almost an authority figure, or someone who is important to your kid. You know what I mean? So if they make a recommendation about a game or a book or a movie or a pair of jeans, like, the kids are tuned to listen and to accept that. So when we have the opportunity to, like, spend time with our kids online, like, watch the videos that your kids are watching with them and get to know some of these guys. I mean, some of the videos that I watch with my kids are super dumb. right? Some of them are really, really funny. Like inappropriate, I probably shouldn't laugh, but they're so funny. Right? That this guy shouldn't be talking about preventive health measures.
Right.
You know, stick to your lane, my friend. Eat bacon, play Red Dead. Don't talk to me about making masks out of vacuum cleaner bags.
Oh, Lord. Okay. Well, so I want to ask you, I just have a couple more questions because I know we have to keep an eye on time here, but do you have, so I told you my rules kind of loosey-goosey about the sort of, you know, one thing for your brain, body, and house. And I think part of that is because is made a little bit easier because my kids are kind of rule follower kind of kids. And, you know, I think they also understand, we've had enough conversations about screen time that they know what our mantra is. But I understand, you know, there are parents out there who want some firmer boundaries. And what would you recommend to people who want that? So like, are there favorite time limit apps or like a paper agreement? I think you talked about like a digital agreement in your book. Paper scheduling, like what would you say right now where things are just so blown open?
I think there's a couple things you can do. I like using tech to set limits on tech. So if I say 5 more minutes, then I'm like, I want to see you set a timer for 5 minutes. Great that you can hear. I also, for younger kids, getting a countdown clock or an egg timer to set limits is nice because then they can visually see time counting back. And that really helps because when you're super engaged with tech, it's really easy to lose track of time, as we all know, right?
Yes.
So it's not anything wrong with your kid that the game they're playing or the show they're watching is more engaging than you nagging them to turn it off, right? So I would give them like countdown clock or an egg timer or something, or have them set a timer on their phone that they can watch countdown while they're finishing up what they're doing. I think paper agreements or contracts are great, but they're only as good as your commitment to following them. Absolutely. So if you make a big deal about setting up an agreement and then you don't follow through, there's no point in doing it. And so I am not someone who is amazing at following through on this. Like the chore charts in my house tended to last like 2.6 weeks.
Yeah. Yep.
You know, and they'd be like, you owe me $12. And I'd be like, but I gave you $1 in the van. And it didn't work for us. So like, we just have general rules and I'm good at enforcing them. Really specific stuff in contracts doesn't work. The other thing I would do is reinforce and reinforce and reinforce every time they transition away from tech positively. So last night I just was exhausted and went to bed early, and my daughter was watching Parks and Rec, like the 75th episode of the day. And I was like, hey, when this episode is over in 12 minutes, I need to trust that you're going to turn off the TV and go to bed. And she did. And I just was like, thank you for doing what you said you were going to do. And every time a kid shows that ability to self-regulate, just praise it, reward it, say, I am so, like, narrate why you're happy with them. If you're limiting sugar and sweets and stuff, good idea, right? Yeah. Be like, definitely, you know, here's a candy, have an M&M, I don't know. You know, but just like make sure you understand that every time they're doing that good job of transitioning, prioritizing or balancing non-screen time to screen time, like you got to praise that behavior that you are looking for. And every time they're doing a good job self-regulating their tech use or following the rules, just make sure that you praise that. And if you can praise it in front of as many people as possible, even better. I mean, that's like preschool stuff, right? But all of us, like, I love being told I'm a good girl. I love it.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a great point too, because I think, you know, usually conversations about screen time are sort of in the negative. So I love that you're making a tech positive recommendation because, you know, first, you know, all tech is not equal, as we know. And I think one of the most beautiful things that I've seen out of this whole crazy situation is the rise of like artists and creative forces delivering so much online. I mean, it's just tremendously inspiring. So I love that is happening. And I love that this also gives us an opportunity to really praise that, tech positive behavior. And you're right, it is like preschool, but honestly, like so much of preschool learnings is like parent learnings all the way.
Great. And the other thing that you can do that is really helpful for kids, especially older kids, is to kind of gamify or like allow them to level up every time they're doing something really great. If they decide to go a whole day with no video games or, no screens or whatever, I turn it into a challenge for the whole family where like everybody closes down and whoever gives in first, I think there's opportunities to make it fun and to make it something that you're all doing. But again, it really comes down to the adults in the house. Like how you behave around tech is going to be this huge influence around how they behave around tech and what they perceive as normal. Just like if we are really freaking out about everything, it's going to heighten their anxiety. So we just, need to do what we're doing and stay calm and try and eat our vegetables and drink water and be grateful for every single thing that we have right now.
Seriously. Yeah. Amen. All right. Well, I want to close this broadcast by asking you, because you know me, I always want to like have like one tactical thing that people can do. If there's one thing that parents should talk to their kids about tech, screen time, whatever, what would you recommend that be? And how do you recommend they open the conversation?
I think the most important thing we can teach our kids about tech is like that big life lesson. We always want to keep them safe. We always want to keep them happy and healthy, but really, ultimately, it's about them keeping themselves safe and keeping themselves happy and healthy. And we have to have a lot of conversations about how our relationship with tech can easily tip into unhealthy or unhappy or making us feel bad. And the only people who can recognize when that tipping is happening is that individual person. So if a game is making you angry or your friends are excluding you that you're playing with, recognize that, own it, don't feel ashamed or rejected or whatever, and just take a step back. And if a situation starts to feel funny or uncomfortable, take a step back, talk about it. Even, if you're scared to talk to a parent, talk to a friend, talk to an older sibling, tell someone. And I know that sounds maybe a little alarmist, but the more time we spend online, the more likely we are to, it's like anything else. More is often worse, right? And we just want our kids to own their own well-being and their own safety online. If they're doing something that is starting to feel really uncomfortable to them, we want them to identify that and own it. And the problem with being online a lot is that it can start to feel normal. So if they have this moment where they recognize, like, I've been doing this for way too long and it's starting to not feel healthy, like, tell them to own that. And then when they share it with you, be like, I'm so proud of you for recognizing that. A lot of people couldn't or wouldn't, right?
Yeah.
I'm super proud of you. Let's go for a walk. Let's make some cookies. Right?
Yeah.
Let's make cookies.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic, because I think that that in and of itself is a really crucial skill to develop. And I think that will serve them, this whole exercise of kind of tuning in to see how you're feeling. I mean, that's going to serve them through like peer pressure decisions and just so many other things that I think that's like, if you're sitting here as a parent thinking, well, I don't know how important that is, I feel like that's like everything is, figuring out how to tune in.
I wish that I could say that we can always keep our kids safe, that we can always protect them from stupid decisions, from bad influences, from kind of giving into the technology that's really designed to keep them using it all the time, right? But I mean, the problem is the older they get, the more that becomes their job. And ultimately, it has to be their job because you're not always with them. And the more we can teach them to be mindful of what they're doing, whether it's using tech or interacting with other people, or just like being on a group chat and it starts to feel hostile, the best thing they can do is say, oh, my mom's calling me, gotta go, guys, bye.
Yeah.
You can process it. And they have to learn how to do that for themselves.
Yeah.
Sadly.
So amazing. Well, thank you, my friend, for joining me today.
Thanks
This
for
was
having
so
me.
fun. I have to encourage everybody to get, geez, to get your book, Raising a Screen Smart Kid. This is the best. And I love it so much. And there's so much wisdom in there, but also like just real parent stuff. So thank you again for carving time out of your, like, this crazy world we're living in right now. It's also just wonderful to see your face. So thank you.
Thank you so much. It was really great to see you and to talk to you. And I always love it.
All right. Take care, my friend.
Bye.
Okay.